Hello, New York sports fans, and welcome to the first episode of Bum and Bummer. I am joined by two diehard Mets fans, Preston Kakuza and Aaron Knopf. Today, we'll be discussing Johan Santana's no-hitter. So let's dive right in with the first question of what you guys think the no-hitter meant for the organization.
Yeah, Max, I'll take this one first. I think that the no-hitter was huge for the organization. Obviously, we know that it was the first no-hitter in the organization's history. Johan had no-hit the the former World Series champions in the St. Louis Cardinals. That season, they were the best hitting team in the NL at the time, and they actually hadn't been no-hit for almost 20 years. Obviously there have been a few Hall of Fame pitchers that have played for the Mets, Nolan Ryan, Tom Seaver, Dwight Gooden, and they all ended up throwing a no-hitter after they were a part of the Mets organization. That's been a trend more and more as we've seen as New York sports fans. Players always end up getting better once they leave the New York market. But all in all, I think that the no-hitter was a perfect representation of the Mets organization as this grinded out and gritty organization. Johan coming back from this brutal injury the year before, and to be able to throw a no-hitter against the type of team that the Cardinals were, coming off their World Series championship and being the best hitting team in the NL at the time, was extremely impressive, and it provided a really great staple in what was just a mundane season in the beginning of beginning of June for the Mets. So.
Aaron, I agree completely. I think that Johan's no-hitter was incredible for the Mets organization, and the team had gone 8,000 games without a no-hitter, and were one of two teams in the league that had not ever pitched. No one had ever pitched a no-hitter, and as you mentioned, they've had some incredible pitchers. Tom Seaver pitched 5 different one-hitters for the Mets, but never a no-hitter. And Gooden and Cone also both threw one-hitters, but all 3 of them ended up pitching no-hitters for other teams after they left. So as we could say, I think the Mets were cursed. So it seemed like it couldn't be done. And then Santana came in that June night, and at first, at the start of the game, didn't seem like he had anything, and then just went with the game, and something special came out of it. And I think that it was really big for the organization and for the fan base.
Absolutely.
So do you guys think Terry Collins should have pulled him with his high pitch count, though, or do you think it was a smart move to let him finish the game and reach that milestone?
I mean, he was at 134 he ended up finishing with. His pitch limit was 115, which kind of made sense since he tore I think it was an anterior capsule. And that's how he missed his 2011 season. It's a pretty brutal injury. It was only June at the time, so it was pretty risky of a move because there was a lot of season left, but those type of nights, they don't happen too often. They're once in a lifetime opportunities for pitchers where they're really feeling it. Johan knew that he was playing special baseball. I think he was worth leaving out there to finish the job. Obviously, as we know, his ERA did go up substantially that season. Now, whether that was due to extra stress that he placed on his arm, or he was never able to recover from the injury, and that was just from the onset of the season. I don't think we'll ever know, but personally, I think if you're going to go with a gut decision from a manager's perspective, you got to leave the guy in there. It's 20 extra pitches, and if it does end up hurting himself, he hurts himself. But I think it was definitely a smart move for him to leave him in, and he got the job done.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Terry should have left him in, which makes sense. And but Terry actually said that night of the no-hitter was without a doubt the worst night he's ever spent in baseball, because he knew Johan's career was going to end that night because of that pitch count. And I think when that became most when he observed that most was when in the 7th inning, Johan, as Aaron said, had that 115 pitch limit, and he was 109 pitches deep after that 7th inning. And everyone in the Mets dugout was like thinking, what is Terry going to do? Like, this is probably one of the toughest decisions the guy's ever had to make in his life. Like, does he go with the first no-hitter for the franchise's history and ruin a man's career, or does he take the conservative route? And
yeah, I mean, it's so tough, like these guys, they bust their ass, and they only pitch once every 5-6 days when they're not injured. And this dude's throwing the game of his life, and you're really going to take him out because of some BS pitch count. It's so tough. And not only is it up to the manager themselves, but like the pitcher's got an ego, like I've seen multiple times just from watching games where the pitcher is able to convince the manager to keep him in solely from an ego standpoint, that he really wants it and he knows he's got something special in the tank that specific day. So obviously Terry Collins is in a difficult position, but he could have gone either way.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Johan was definitely in that zone too, and like Terry knew it, and guys on the team knew it too. And I actually thought that one of the most interesting plays during that game was when Mike Baxter, we all remember him, he dove into the wall to rob someone of an extra base hit. I forgot who it was, and it ended up costing him his right collarbone, and he also fractured his rib cartilage and spent 2 months on the DL after that. So like similar to Santana, he had a hard time getting back to normal and his career was kind of over. And he was the guy on the team. No one knew what a no-hitter would mean to the team more than him, because he grew up in Queens in the shadow of Shea Stadium, similar to myself. So growing up next to that curse where we all see these great pitchers coming in, not throwing no-hitters and then leaving and throwing them, he knew what it meant and just put it all out there. And I think Johan just knew he had to finish that game.
Yeah, so moving on, there was a play where there was a borderline ball that was hit down the line by Carlos Beltran that was ruled foul. So my question is, do you guys think that the no-hitter is tainted in any way because of this questionable call, or do you think that it's authentic and that he deserves the recognition for the no-hitter?
Nah, not tainted.
So
yeah,
I'll start with this one.
Okay.
So I think that the ground ball Beltran hit to lead off that 6th inning, it clearly did hit. It nicked the foul line after going past the bag. But I never like to say that something's a blown call per se. However, there have been blown calls in almost every professional sports league, and there are controversial calls.
Armando Galarraga, dude, he blew Jim Joyce blew a perfect game with 2 outs in the
Yeah, yup. We all remember that game.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
That was bad.
That was one of the worst calls, and he admitted to it too. He admitted to it. So like that's what makes it worse. And we've seen it in the NBA, the NFL, pass interference calls that ruin games, shooting fouls that ruin games. Like we're all human. We make mistakes. So I don't think that taints the no-hitter at all, because it happens everywhere else. So it's going to happen in baseball too.
So my take is pretty similar to Preston's. In 2012, there was no such thing as instant replay in the MLB. Now it's a thing where the MLB can go and put on their headset and resort to some other higher source, to check out the call and potentially alter the decision that the umpire made. At that time in 2012, instant replay wasn't a thing, so human error played a much larger it was just a bigger deal in those types of circumstances. So you can't fault the umpire for choosing to go either which way, whether it was fair or foul in that type of occurrence, because it was just a bang bang play. But obviously nowadays, if that happened in 2019 or 2020, it'd be a different scenario. But human error was a much bigger deal back then, and had to be, it was just part of the story. It was the same thing with Galarraga.
Absolutely. Well, thank you to Aaron and Preston for coming on. Thanks to everyone who watched the show. And be sure to tune in on Monday for next week's episode of Bum and Bummer. We'll be back in a New York minute.